Yo, whoa, what is going on YouTube? It's your boy Dan, aka aDrive. I'm bringing you guys a brand new video today, and today we are doing a brand new Pokemon Unite tier list. The release of MAMOSWINE just yesterday has kind of shaken things up a little bit, and I think we've had a little bit more time to play with the most recent balance patch where they added the mobile launch, added a couple different held items like Razor Claw and Weakness Policy, as well as choice specs, which is definitely shaking things up. We did do a tier list last week, but I thought I'd update it with the squad today, adding in MAMOSWINE, and maybe some things will change from our perspectives last week. One of the best things about our tier list is I like to get my team, my esports team, Team Shiny, involved. So it's not just gonna be my perspective, but I also got two other team members, top 200 players, on the mic with me today to break this down so we can have a great discussion. So it's not just my opinions, it's actually the opinions of three top level players. So I'll introduce the first one. You guys can check them out in the description below. They stream on Twitch with me for our competitive scrims and battles and everything like that. First one up, we got Heat.
Yo, how's it going?
What's up, man? Glad to have you back on another tier list video. Good to have you, of course. And making their channel debut, we've got Mr. Moo.
Moo. Hey, what up?
What's up, man? So, as I indicated, we've got some really top tier players here, which is awesome. So I'm excited to get their perspectives, give my perspective, and Moo happens to play every character pretty much, so we'll get some really good insight with that. But if you guys enjoy this video, hit that like button down below, and of course, make sure you guys subscribe to my YouTube channel, as I do post Pokemon videos every single day. I got you guys covered with Unite videos, guides, tier lists, everything like that. So make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss out. It just lets you know when I post another video. But without further ado, I think we could just kind of jump into this, right? We're gonna go through each mon, we're gonna rank them. I do want to emphasize that if a Pokemon does not end up in a tier list or a tier that you like, that's not a personal attack on you, all right? Listen, we're gonna rank these based on what we feel is competitively viable right now, given the current metagame. So that's how it's gonna shake down. You guys ready to rock?
Yes, sir. Let's get it.
Yep. I think that's good. So why don't we start Heat? We'll just kind of bounce around a little bit. Heat, tell me about. Why can't I find him? Tell me about Lucario.
Yeah, I think Lucario is still S, no doubt. He's still really strong. E-speed is still very good. He didn't get nerfed. He hasn't been changed since last patch, and he's staying solid in that position. He's practically a must-have on every team. He can play anywhere. Yeah, easy S. Yeah, super strong. And one thing I do want to mention before we go any further is we're going to put the Pokemon in different tiers, but we're not going to order them in the tiers. So like, just because, let's say I put Snorlax after Lucario, that doesn't mean that Snorlax isn't better than Lucario or whatever. We're just kind of tiering them as best as we can. So actually, Moo, why don't we just go to Snorlax since I just brought him up?
I think Snorlax is in a weird spot because there's a top team that runs him, and they say that he is by far the best tank. He does everything they want to do. But the issue is that Snorlax has one engage, and that's his Heavy Slam, and if teams play around it, it's kind of easy to play against him. So for me, I'd put him in A just because he's a really strong pick, but there is ways to play around him. He's not like just insanely good no matter what.
What do you think about that, Heat? A or S?
Yeah, I think he's A tier as well. I would err on the side of agreeing with that.
All right, so Snorlax getting knocked down a little bit from our previous tier, but I think a lot of us would agree that he's still the premium defender. But speaking of another defender, we've actually got Blastoise, which I think is an interesting Pokemon to talk about going into another defender slot. Blastoise is the mon that I would have said was S tier by far, going back about a week and a half. But they did do some bug fixes on it, so now it no longer can basic attack while spinning in addition to its Hydro Pump and Water Spout, but it still is incredibly strong, right? This is a Pokemon that can head into the jungle, it can get to level 9 for Dreadnought. It's one of the best objective secures in the game with its Unite move. Very strong pick. I'm feeling like Blastoise actually falls into A tier as well. What about you guys?
Yeah, I think so as well. I think if he's high A, low S, I still think he has S tier potential. I think his ultimate will always be S tier. He could have no abilities in just an ultimate, and I still think you put him S tier, but given the current how we're laying this out, I would say he's probably top of A tier. I don't expect us to have that many characters in S tier this time around.
Yeah, I think we're really gonna try to separate those two a little bit better this time, but we might have a wider variety of Pokemon in the A tier, which I think is a good representation of balance. I think one of the most interesting characters to look at right now is actually Talonflame. Talonflame receiving an attack buff, a movement speed buff to fly, and can just dish out massive damage. We actually saw it take the title in a most recent tournament as the jungler. Moo, would you say that Talonflame falls into S tier yet?
I'd say not yet, purely because with Talon, you're playing around Fly, so you have good smite, you have really high damage on an AoE, but the issue is that does take 7, and a lot of junglers do need 7, but with Talon, his acrobatics you have to dive in. So let's say you're going for B's bot, he has to dive in to get those Bs, so there's a chance to always pick him when he's trying to get that neutral farm. So his early game isn't crazy insane compared to maybe someone like, I don't know, if you put Lucario in jungle, level 5 power spike, he's insane. You know, it's hard to get in the S tier now to really show what the Mon can do.
Yeah, and I want to bring this up. I think one of the things is the more we're seeing Talonflame now that it's become more of a meta pick, the more we're seeing Talonflame, I think it's a little bit easier to play around it a little bit more, right? Like if you're burning Dreadnought and you know that Talonflame's coming and it goes for Fly, just stop it in the Dreadnought, right? Like just stop it in the Dreadnought so that Fly is not a last hit, but rather, you know, is bringing it down to 5%. So I think that there's definitely ways to kind of play around it, but let's not play any games here, right? Talonflame can swoop in and completely destroy a team. Fly is so strong, especially on the squishies, and the increased movement speed on it is very, very powerful. But I tend to think A tier is really solid for it as well. I think why don't we talk a little bit about Cramorant? Cramorant's a mon that we previously looked at as being a really top tier Pokemon, got some pretty big nerfs to its Surf, and it still has one of the best Unite moves in the game. Where would you place Cramorant right now?
Yeah, I think, I mean, a top tier team is still playing Cramo. I think Cramo is really good against the 1-1-3 meta where you have 3 bot, 1 top, 1 jungle. But I still think the nerfs hit him and it's noticeable and you can feel it. And if someone's not running that meta, he's just not as standout. Honestly, I think he's probably like top of B, bottom of A. I would say to put him in A tier just because he is competitively viable, right? Obviously. But I don't think he's the powerhouse he used to be, right?
Yeah, I think that's fair. His Whirlpool gives him really, really good early game secure. And in terms of his late game, he just becomes a Unite machine, right? He has the ability to essentially go into an area and completely zone it off, and that allows him to function on a team composition in terms of, you know, how he functions late game, mid to late game. So that Unite move's still really, really good. And again, it's one of the best zoning tools in the game. So very, very cool stuff there. The next Pokemon we'll talk about is Venusaur. Venusaur is a mon that I find to be very interesting. I think in our previous tier list, we had him in A tier. That's kind of the introduction of the new Petal Dance Giga Drain set that has really kind of taken the competitive metagame by storm. Venusaur can dish out massive amounts of damage with that Petal Dance Giga Drain combo, and he can actually just run into crowds of multiple enemies and simply solo them. I really feel like I feel like this thing's got to be an S tier right now. I really think Venusaur is that strong. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. I think there's no question he's an S tier mon.
Yeah, I mean, his damage dealing is nuts. The fact that he can run in, he can heal, he has longevity in those battles without really the necessity of a support Pokemon. And when played jungle, he can be really good. His early game laning isn't bad, especially with items like Choice Specs, helping him out, allowing him to deal a little bit more extra damage with those Razor Leaves. I think it's definitely an S tier mon right now. And it's crazy how that one update took Venusaur from being an average Pokemon to one of the best Pokemon in the game right now. And I'm here for it, man. I love this character. I love Venusaur. So very, very powerful mon. Moo, why don't you tell us a little about Gardevoir? Where do you think Gardevoir sits right now?
Gardevoir is just not good. Like, I want Gardy to be good. She has a nice kit, but takes so long to get online. You get Psyshock at, what is it, 6?
Yep.
And even having Psyshock that early, it's not even that good of clear. And to get Gardy at 10, you're basically without a mon until she's 10. She's just not good right now. Easily punished. There's just so much you can do to deal with her. I'd put her in C tier by far.
Yeah,
not release.
Our first C tier. And I know a lot of people hate hearing that about Gardevoir, and don't get us wrong, a well-played Gardevoir that gets fed, that gets to level 10 early, can definitely be strong, but the reality of it is stacking up against other characters in the game that can play that jungle role, just do it much better right now, and Gardevoir just simply has such a terrible early game, and even its late game, especially with Talonflames running amok. I mean, Talonflame just flies on it and it's dead. So, yeah, unfortunately, Gardevoir does take kind of the bottom of the barrel here for us right now. But let's talk Moo. Why don't you, actually, Heat, why don't you give me your perspective on Alolan Ninetales? This is a very interesting mon that has kind of floated in the S and A tier, but it seems like it's kind of fallen out of viability a little bit, Heat.
Yeah, we're just seeing a lot of the meta swap to, you know, if you have a Ninetales in your team, Ninetales can just get run down. There's a lot more mobility. There's some unstoppable characters or people that can, you know, mons that can just stay alive for a lot longer. like Venusaur, Blastoise, etc. I think Alolan Ninetales is probably B tier now just because of how good Talonflame, Blastoise, and Venu are. But Moo can comment as well.
And I agree with Heat putting Ninetales in B tier purely because her early game is so good. It's such a good laning phase mon. But outside of that, if you look at who the S tiers are currently, Lucario and Venu, those mons just run down Ninetales. If you're running AV Dazzling, the only real self-peel you have is from Dazzling, and then you're kind of just dead because E-Speed and Petal Dance exist.
Yeah, I think that's all fair analysis there. So we'll put it in B tier, Ninetales with the Fall from Grace, as other Pokemon have kind of scaled their way up. I'll talk a little bit about Crustle. This is the Pokemon that I have the most experience with. I think Crustle has a really niche location in this metagame right now as a Pokemon that can offlane, really burn through objectives with Stealth Rock. I think there is a little bit more viability to that X-Scissor set with Weakness Policy and kind of running some of that stuff. It's got some of the best movement speed and mobility in the game, but unfortunately it's just not super good for team engagements until you kind of get to that final fight for Zapdos. But it's a really, really good objective mon. Now, I will say, I feel like because of some of these other characters, like the Zeraoras, like the Lucarios of the world, who can offlane so much better than Crustle, I feel like Crustle probably falls into a high B tier right now. I don't think I could quite give it to A tier, simply because, again, when it comes to engaging, it's really, really bad in engaging fights. You know, Shell Smash is your mobility, you're sacrificing your bulk in order to do that. It's good at what it does. It's good at clearing objectives, and it's good at you know, farming. But outside of that, if you're running Stealth Rock, which I think is the best set, I feel like it just kind of falls flat. I feel like it's a disadvantage in team fights. You guys agree on B tier?
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because his, like I said, his primary role is kind of off-laning as a Stealth Rock option, and when Lucario and Zeraora just do that role better, it's just hard to kind of justify that character. Moo, why don't you give me your thoughts on Absol? This is a very interesting Pokemon right now.
As much as I think Absol is really good, Absol's kit makes it really hard to put it in like a competitive viable sense because he plays around picks, he plays around getting that like that one-on-one quick kill, which doesn't tend to happen too much. He also has a really weak lane, so you're putting him in that jungle spot, which takes away from Talon, Cinder, Venu. So I'd have to put him in B, in my own opinion, just because I think he has potential, but within this meta, he just doesn't have a spot.
Yeah,
but I don't think he's bad.
I was gonna mention playing with Strife yesterday. There was a handful of times where he would pick Absol for jungle, and we would look at the other team's team comp, and he'd be like, I can't do anything. Just because of how CC heavy this game is right now. Absol, like you mentioned, is not the mon for team fights, right? He's there to pick off one Pokemon at a time. And when you're playing against a cohesive team that's traveling together and fighting objectives together, he kind of just falls a little bit flat there. So I think B tier is pretty appropriate. Why don't you give me your perspective on Zeraora? I know a character that you play quite a bit.
Oh my gosh, Zeraora is amazing. I love the changes to Zeraora. They hit the nail on the head, making Zera's early a little bit better. It's a good counter to Lucario 1v1. I put Zera high A, low S. We could probably drop it in A tier. Obviously competitively viable, obviously very, very, very strong. I don't think it's game-breakingly strong or just like too strong that you have to run it, but it's also just, you know, if you run it, you're not making a mistake and your team's not hard losing, right?
That's fair. Any thoughts, Mo?
I completely agree, especially with Zera kind of having the edge on the Lucario 1v1. I think he has a good spot, but as Heat said, he doesn't, like, he's not a pick or ban, as you would say. Like, you can't just have a Zera and win, and if you don't have a Zera, you don't automatically lose if the other team has one.
That's fair. Next mod we'll talk about is Mr. Mime. Mr. Mime's a character that I play quite a bit, and I think he's got a very interesting spot in this metagame right now where we're seeing a lot of teams running a 3 bottom strategy, and Mime actually plays that really, really well. Has super good early game smite with its fake out. It basically completely spikes his kit at level 4 once it gets access to Confusion, and then you'll get Barrier at 6, but Light Screen kind of functions in a similar way anyway. And Choice Specs has really made Mime a strong pick. This thing can do a lot more damage than it could before. It's got a great Unite move that charges really fast, and it's a solid mod all around. It does fall off a little bit on the late game though. Like I said, it's very good early game, hits that spike at 4. I know Feppy is in the chat screaming A tier. I feel like this is on the cusp between B and A. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree, and we can put it in A tier to make Feppy happy, but I think it's definitely high B, low A. It's competitively viable in a very niche circumstance. Otherwise, it's kind of bad. So I think that's fair.
I think we'll put it in A, but it's got an asterisk next to it as a high B, low A there for sure. Mr. Mike doing his thing. Moo, why don't you give me your perspective on Cinderace?
Cinderace is also in a really weird spot because he's still your standard ADC. He does what he needs to do. He pumps out damage. He does, you know, crazy amount of damage with the Pyro Ball buff, which was not needed. I want to put him in A tier, I really do, but compared to Talon and just Venu and Lucario, he kind of undershines now, especially with, you know, everyone just wanting to be in the burst meta. He's got a really strong kit, but to be honest, for me, I'd be putting him down into B tier, to be honest, because there's just better stuff you can run.
That's an interesting take, Heat. What do you think about B tier Cinderace?
Yeah, I'm shook as well on that take. Wow. I was on my stream saying, what is going on?
Now, mind you, Moo does play a lot of Cinderace, guys. In fact, that's one of his main roles on our team. So if he feels that way, that's pretty interesting. I feel like Heat and I are gonna vote in here at A tier, right?
Yeah, I'd say he's like, I think, I mean, if you're wanting to pick someone who's a ranged AD carry style role, you pick Cinder. Therefore, he is A tier because he's competitively viable, right? Like, I think, again, you're not losing by taking him, but he's not guaranteeing you a win either. So I just think he goes there.
That's very.
I think he's an alternative to Blastoise, to Talonflame, to, you know, any of those picks in jungle.
Yeah, and I think to just kind of further on what Moo's trying to say is, right now we are in a very burst-heavy metagame, right? We have Pokemon like Talonflame and like Lucario that are jumping into an engagement and dealing a tremendous amount of damage in basically 1 or 2 attacks. And Cinderace is not doing that generally, right? Cinderace is on the outskirts of the fight, attacking with incredible speed to hit the Pokemon kind of in the middle of the fight. So they play it very differently, and Talonflame's kind of rise to fame here, rise to flame, has actually kind of resulted in that. So we'll keep him in the A tier, and I guess we could actually I'll talk to Pikachu right now. Another Pokemon that plays in a way similar to Cinderace in the fact that you want to be kind of on the outskirts of the battle. Pikachu's a mon that I find very interesting. I think he's got a super strong kit early game, Electro Web, Energy Ball, very, very strong. The problem with Pikachu, though, is if you're behind, you are very behind with Pikachu. His clear is really bad, and while he does have a really cool kit, Choice Specs helps. I think I've been running Shell Bell Choice Specs Wise Glasses. That's helped a lot. He's a Pokemon that, especially with Talonflames, guys, like, this thing just straight dies. It just dies. I can't put him any higher than B, personally. I tend to think he's B tier. I don't know if I want to make him accompany Gardevoir. I still feel like he needs a little bit of a power increase, or maybe increase the range just a little bit on his attacks. I feel like, to me, he's CB, and I love Pikachu, so I'll let you guys make the deciding vote.
Yeah, I think if Pikachu's ahead, it's S tier, but if Pikachu's even and or behind, it's like B tier, and if it's behind, it's C tier. So I'm with you. It's like really low B, high C. Like, it would be above Guardy technically, right? But I think Absol's better as a pick.
Yeah, I think. Any thoughts, Moo? I'm gonna put him in C, so Gardevoir's not alone here.
I completely agree that if Pika's behind, it just feels terrible. Like, it almost feels like you're not doing any damage whatsoever with your Electro Ball. Like, the only thing you're bringing is the stun at that point, because the Unite move into Buddy Barriers is just not good.
Yeah.
And this is all coming from behind. If Pikachu's ahead, he kind of pub stomps, but having a character that depends on getting ahead isn't always good in a competitive sense.
Yeah, I tend to agree with all that, and I think you brought up a point that I didn't mention, is the Buddy Barriers, right? Buddy Barriers is like the premier held item in the game right now, and, you know, I can tell you how discouraging it is to have your opponent team just go for Buddy Barrier and Unite move, and then Pikachu's basically useless. It just does not have nearly enough damage to break through those barriers, even when you're Unite moving, and it just falls flat. Like, I really feel like it just does not stand up in the metagame right now. I think if Buddy Barrier got nerfed, there's a role for it for sure, especially as an early game laner. But it just doesn't do enough. It just doesn't do enough. And again, if you're behind, you're so far behind with
also,
Pikachu.
They've got to change it so you can't get like knock up out of Pika's Unite move, so that while you're knocked up, you're not doing any damage. Like, there's stuff like that they just have to fix.
Yeah,
on
give him invincibility while he unites. That would help.
Oh yeah.
I mean, no, I don't think that would be broken. I think it would help because I can tell you, I've basically been running full heal Pikachu, so that way I can full heal into my Unite, so I can actually get the Unite move off. It's just kind of ridiculous.
Agreed.
You know, so there's that whole thing going on there. But let's keep it rocking here. Let's talk. Moo, why don't you give me your thoughts on Cinderace since you gave us your thoughts on I'm sorry, on Greninja since you gave us your thoughts on Cinderace.
To be honest, we haven't really seen many Greninjas now, so it's kind of hard to put him in a place because he just doesn't have enough pick in this current patch. I think what they did with Double Team is really cool, and I think it actually gives some viability to Water Shuriken that the clones now throw out whatever move you have, whether it's Bubble, Water Shuriken, or Surf. It's interesting, but once again, I think he goes into the B tier slot as I put Cinder because he's an ADC, but he's better as a melee, which is making him want to pick Surf. But with the double team changes, Shuriken's kind of seeming better. So he's kind of just at a weird crossroad where Surf is better for the Mon in general, but the way they buffed him, double team Water Shuriken's a lot better. So he's at a weird spot.
Yeah,
I agree, and I think there's just so many people you pick above him in the jungle slot that he just doesn't make it to the A or S tier, right? Like you would take Talonflame, Cinder, Blastoise, Venu, Lucario, all above Greninja, so it's hard to justify higher than B.
Yeah, that was the point I was gonna make. Is we've kind of seen a shift back to Cinderace again. Cinderace being preferred over Greninja again. So again, we're not doubting Greninja's viability here as a good pick. It's just that there's better picks right now. So I think that's a very fair spot for him. I'll let, let's see here. I'll let Heat talk to Garchomp. What do you think about Garchomp, Heat?
I know Moo would say probably put this in B tier. I would probably err on the side of agreeing with him. I think Garchomp has his viability and he's definitely a bit better since he got a bit tankier, but he's definitely not a top, solo lane pick over, Zeraora or Lucario or anyone of that nature. I don't think he's got the last hit potential. He kind of plays the lane like Zeraora, just not quite as good. So I would put him in B tier.
Any thoughts, Moo?
I would put him in like the lowest of low of B tier because I've been saying it since day one. He doesn't need any number changes or anything. He needs a kit rework because his kit is what hurts him the most. Like what Heat said in the Canadian beta about how Dig used to be, you went underground and then you chose when to come out. I think that was perfect for Garchomp, but now like Dragon Rush is cool and all, but it's not a good engage. Dig is cool and all, it's not a good engage. He just doesn't have the abilities to do what Garchomp wants to do. So I don't know. He's kind of just not that good. I'd say C tier even because he can't do what he needs to do a lot of the time.
Yeah, agreed. I think it'd be a really cool change if they made it so while he's sitting on 5 stacks of his auto attack, he could kind of like blink or like dash forward a little bit to attack people. Not a massive range, just like a bit of a gap close. It would help a lot. But yeah, he needs some sort of kit rework that helps him stick to people or else he just ends up getting caught out.
Fair points. I think we're kind of all in agreement that he'd be like high C, low B. So we'll put him in C tier so Pika and Gardevoir aren't lonely. I think that's fair. But we can add to that tier right now. We'll talk a little bit about Slowbro. With the addition of MAMOSWINE, there's another defender in the game, and unfortunately Slowbro continues to just really not see any play. I think Slowbro's one real kind of use right now is its Unite move, stopping things like Blastoise from Unite moving. I mean, unfortunately Slowbro just really lacks a lot of things. It's really weak in the early game. It does evolve pretty early at 4. Its Surf is pretty good, and it obviously has a couple cool things going on with telekinesis that can be helpful in team fights. But right now, I just feel like when you could choose Blastoise or Snorlax, how do you pick Slowbro?
Agreed. He just goes into C tier. I don't think he ever sees play. You pick Blastoise or Snorlax or Crustle before you pick Slowbro, in my opinion. And Mamo, which we'll get to, I think is also better than Slowbro in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So
fair points. Heat, why don't you give me your thoughts on Gengar right now?
Gengar is also one of those mons that's in a really weird place. Like if this was a solo Q tier list, I'd say Gengar's probably A tier because he's really good at pub stomping people. The addition of choice specs sees him do a lot of damage, but otherwise in competitive play, he's really easy to pick out. If he misses one skill, he's kind of dead. I just think he falls into, mid B tier. There's too many junglers that are better than him. Lane Gar is not great versus other lane carry options. Yeah, I think B tier is fair.
Fair points. Any thoughts on that, Mo?
I just find it funny. It's more not a point but a comment how Gengar went from being like a really scary assassin to now he's kind of just like a range. He's like a ranged assassin. Like you just take Shadow Ball. You're doing like he's kind of like Pika, except he has a better kit with Dream Eater Shadow Ball. He's like that ranged artillery that just kind of nukes from a distance. But once his abilities are down, there isn't too much he can do. So I think B tier is a good spot for him. Just because he doesn't really fit in.
All right, next up, I'll talk Charizard. Charizard, another all-arounder that got a couple of different buffs, one of which is a cooldown to its Fire Blast. It got an increased movement speed from Flamethrower. Fire Punch was also tweaked. Its Unite move got a kind of, I don't want to say complete rework, but the Slam goes first now, which kind of changes how Charizard plays. This is a character that I think has a lot of potential, but we're not really seeing a ton of right now because I think there's just better picks kind of falls in. Like, how do you say, okay, and I know Moo's a big Charizard fan here, so I definitely want to have you weigh in. To me, it falls between B and A, but I'm leaning towards B right now, given where you know, we've seen him being played. We don't really see Charizard being picked when you can have a Lucario or a Venusaur. You're not going to send him to jungle, generally speaking, when you can have a Talonflame or one of the ADCs. Moo, I really want your perspective on this because I know you're a big Charizard guy.
So the way I see Charizard right now is he has to go in like the 1-1-3 lane and then end up going in the 3-man lane because you can't put him in jungle because then you're taking away from all the other junglers. And when you put him in lane, you kind of sign yourself up for, okay, we need to sit here and we need to steal everything because Charizard's not going to be able to confirm anything because he has nothing in his early game kit to do that. And an added hot take, I think the change on his ult actually hurt him more than helped him because he can't just hit his Unite button and help DPS like an objective like Dread or Zap. And the fact that you can unstop and stop his ult from going off in the team fight for roughly like 5 seconds. I would put him in B tier purely because of just
all the points you mentioned.
Yeah, there's just not a lot you can argue for him to be anywhere higher.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Again, we're not saying that Charizard can't be really good, but again, when you function in the fact that Charizard and Venu would play a lane spot and they compete for that lane spot, it's hard to justify picking Charizard over Venusaur right now. It's really hard. And not saying Charizard's not good. I think it's super strong, and I'm a big fan of Fire Blast in terms of burning objectives, but yeah, we just can't put it any higher than that right now. Heat, why don't you give me your thoughts on Machamp, actually? This is an interesting mon.
Yeah, I think Machamp is also in a pretty weird place right now with his kit. It's very unclear what he's actually trying to accomplish in team fights, right? Either moveset you go, your options are you engage in, you can auto attack a bunch, but you're not putting out that much damage, or you can use your skills for damage, and then, you know, you're kind of, you've blown your load, as you'd say. So I think he's probably B tier, maybe even like the top of C tier. I'll let Moo chime in. I don't think he has that much of a place in the current metagame, at least in competitive fives, right? I think submission is still a great skill or a great ability, right? I just don't think it converts as much as, you know, taking Surf on a Cramorant and getting a long range pick, or getting Zeraora and pulling someone back like 20 feet.
The issue with Machamp is just nobody knows where to play him. He's kind of in that weird spot where nobody knows if he should go jungle, if he should go in the 3 lane, if he can go off lane. Nobody really knows because he doesn't excel at anything. He's kind of just the all-rounder. Like, he does everything okay, but he's not crazy. So I'd say high C tier, low B.
Yeah, I think we'll keep him in C tier for now. Poor Machamp. Gonna need some buffs on that one. We've got Wigglytuff up next, which is in such a weird spot, right? Wigglytuff got some kind of nerfs in terms of how Sing functions, but it seems like Sing is still keeping things asleep in my mind. You know, I think we could have argued, you know, 2 weeks ago that Wigglytuff was S tier, maybe A tier, or A tier, maybe S tier. I think you flip it the other way. But I feel like right now he's kind of sitting at B tier in my mind. I guess you could make an argument for A, but I'm feeling like Wiggly's sitting in that B tier right now as a Pokemon that can be very disruptive with its passive, Cute Charm. I think Sing is still really good. I think Rollout actually has a lot of viability right now, especially with the rise of Safeguard Blissey kind of coming into the metagame. Its early game damage did get kind of dropped off a little bit, and its damage in general got dropped off a little bit. So I'm kind of feeling like B tier. What about you guys?
I think Rollout Wiggly is just better now, and I think Wiggly's probably still A tier. I think. I mean, it still feels oppressive to play against. It still dominates lane matchups. It's still very, very good in the 3 lane as like the smiting option. Still very tanky, right? I mean, very high contribution to team fights with the ultimate and the full cleanse and unstop. I mean, I think it's A personally.
Fair enough. Any final decisions on this move? Feppy's in chat saying A.
I would say A purely because Cute Charm still exists.
Yeah, dude, Cute Charm is the most frustrating thing to play against. I was playing Mamo yesterday, and every time I went to Ice Fang it just stopped it. You just have to always remind yourself in the back of your head, you have to hit it first because Cute Charm is just so ridiculous. Probably, I would argue, one of the best passives in the game. So if we're evaluating based on passive alone, it's S tier. That thing is ridiculous. And it looks like we've actually got a few supports left over here. We've got 2. We can almost talk about them simultaneously. Eldegoss and Blissey. I feel like one of them takes the top spot and one falls just under it. I'll let Moo talk first. What do you think is the premier support right now in the game between Eldegoss and Blissey?
Right now, I would say it's Eld, just because Leaf Tornado gives so much utility for the team. Like, you can use it to disengage, you can use it to steal, you can use it to engage. There's so much you can do with Leaf Tornado. And the early game on Eld isn't crazy, but it's not bad because Leafage does do quite a bit of damage and it does give early heal. So I'd say Eld is still pretty high in A tier, still does what it needs to do. And the ult, you know, the Zap God steals on Eld ult.
And then if we were to argue that Eldegoss sits in A tier, would that mean you'd put Blissey in B tier or just a little bit lower in the A tier rank?
It's a tough one because Safeguard is a really good move, and same with Helping Hand. But you gotta pick Blissey, and Blissey relies on the team being completely together. And if you ever want to like split the team up, you then have to decide, okay, who does Blissey then go with? And Blissey doesn't do anything insanely on her own. She has to be with someone, versus Eld can do quite a bit on her own. So I would definitely say Eld. I almost would put Blissey in B tier.
Wow, any thoughts on that heat between the Eldegoss-Blissey debate?
Yeah, I think Eldegoss is definitely the better Mon. I think they're both A tier because they're obviously both very competitively viable, right? I would say Elde's probably higher A and Blissey's probably lower A, but I know we're putting a lot of Mons in A tier, and that just speaks to the fact they're slowly balancing this game out a bit more, if anything. Because, I mean, again, you pick either one and or both of them on pretty much any team, and they're both very, very good for what they do.
Fair points, and I think that's a very good point as well. The fact that things are pretty balanced out here, which we saw in our last tier list. The last mod, of course, is the newest mod of the game, and that is MAMOSWINE. And I can tell you, got about 50 plus games on MAMOSWINE in 24 hours. I played this character a lot, and my thoughts on it are pretty simple. It's very, very good for engaging in a fight, very solid for team fights. Actually a very good Mon early game, surprisingly, but it actually falls off late game. Its Unite move is a little bit underwhelming, if I'm being honest. At first thought, I thought it was gonna be amazing, but you can't chase things down with it. It's too slow to chase things down when you're using its Unite move. So it's not nearly as impactful as you want it to be. I think he's got a really cool kit. I'm a big believer in Earthquake over high horsepower. I personally don't like high horsepower. I know there's viability for pushing things off objective. I'm an Earthquake guy right now. I think both Ice Fang and Icicle Crash have viability. I tend to like Ice Fang more right now. I think Icicle Crash is really good. You have to kind of play it against whatever comp you're facing. If there's a Wiggly and a Blissey on the other team, I feel like Ice Fang has to go on the back burner. You really got to run Icicle Crash. He's got a lot of really cool things going for him, but I just don't think he stacks up with some of the other characters. I don't think he's at the same level as Snorlax or Blastoise right now. So I'm putting MAMOSWINE in B tier. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. I think Icicle Fang's an amazing move. I think Icicle Crash is also viable. I think Earthquake is phenomenal, but the damage that Mamo's putting out and the Unite move aren't big enough to be super impactful, especially when compared to, you know, Snorlax and or Blastoise, right? Like Snorlax Heavy Slam, Blastoise Unite, just phenomenal moves, and it's hard to compete with that with the current skill set. Yeah, I think B's totally fair.
Good stuff. And actually, someone in the chat just brought this up. I thought this was a really good question. If we were to take 2 Pokemon from A tier and move them into S tier, what would they be? I'll go first, and then we could actually have the other 2 of us go through this. If I had to pick 2 mons from A tier and put them into S tier, so say that those are the 2 standouts in A tier, I think for me, I would probably lean with Blastoise and I would say right now Talonflame. That would be my 2. What about you, Heat?
Yeah, I think either Snorlax or Blastoise and Talonflame as well. Like Talonflame for sure, and then either Snorlax or Blastoise, just depending on what your team's trying to do, right? If your team is more of a, we take long fights, we DPS, I think that Blastoise is better. But if your team is just engage and pick somebody, I think Snorlax is better.
And what would you move, Moo?
Probably for me, I'd say Zera Talon, because Zera's Discharge comes on at 8. Sure, he gets his ult at 10, but Discharge is a Unite on its own, in my opinion. It's so strong, and the fact that his Unite charges so fast, you're already ulting a lot more than every other Mon. And it brings such big pick potential, like in team fights. If you're at Zap and you see like Blissey walks up a little too far, you can just instantly Zera ult, and that's a pick right there. So I would say Zera and Talon, and Talon's kind of self-explanatory. Talon's extremely good right now.
So there you go, guys. There is our updated tier list by Team Shiny Esports for the week of MAMOSWINE dropping the end of September. Now, obviously, one patch can shake things up. We've seen Pokemon like Venusaur go from C tier to S tier all of a sudden with just a few tweaks to its kit. So you never know. And obviously, some of these mons border on, A and B and A and S and even B and C. So there's definitely a little bit of subjectivity there with some of these. So if your favorite hero did not end up where you thought they should, don't attack us, man. That's just our perspective here. So you're welcome to chime in on your perspective in the comment section below and fight for your favorite hero. Be sure to like the video if you guys enjoyed it and subscribe to the channel if you guys are new so you don't miss out on our epic Pokemon Unite and Pokemon content. Feel free to check out my teammates Heat and Moo in the description below. Drop them a follow on Twitch and show them some love on social media. And I appreciate you guys joining me for this tier list video.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Great
Always
time.
a pleasure.
Thank you, Moo. Thank you, Heat. And thank you to the aDrive Army for watching this. My name is Dan. I also go by aDrive, and I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.